Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Named the dog Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in paints?
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, it's my man who loves Julia Louis-Dreyfus. It's Frank. How are you today?
I'm great, and I do love her. She's fantastic.
She is fantastic.
We'll get to that later, but I'm doing great. How are you, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing just fine, Frank. We are here on Beer with Geeks. We are far over 300 episodes, and people are still listening to us, so what's that about?
I don't know, but thank you. Thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you. If you're interested in hearing the rest of our conversations about nothing, feel free to track how Tim and Frank started almost 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
Yeah, 6-7 years ago.
Yeah, and just track that and how we evolved through the years and what we end up talking about. And you'll come to hate us just as much as I hate myself. Yeah.
Aw. Well, I love you.
Oh, thanks, bud. I mediocrely enjoy your pleasantries too.
Aw, thanks. That's nice. Yeah.
Got him. I love him.
Well,
anyway,
I hope whatever you're drinking is better than mediocre.
It actually is better than mediocre, Frank. I'm drinking a Hoegaarden, which is always a good, choice for a Belgian wheat beer. It is my last one of this case, and I think I only have 3 beers left of my, my European grab bag. If you will.
Okay.
So we're moving on to different summer beers pretty soon because summer is approaching. But yeah, that's about it. Coriander and orange peel. It's always a good guess.
Solid.
Frank, what are you drinking?
I'm actually in a similar place where I'm drinking something that is old and Belgian. Yeah, it's Belgian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Old and Belgian and also light, and that's a Stella Artois.
My uncle. Oh no. What are you drinking? Sorry,
Stella.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna make a joke. You're drinking my Uncle Albert? What? Yeah.
No, not this time. This time it's just a good old Stella Artois.
Stella. I do love Stella. Mostly for the Stella joke you can make every time you open a beer.
Every time.
Yeah, I had a Stella yesterday, actually. I wish I didn't, because then we could have had the same beer coincidentally.
Could have been Stella buddies.
What a crazy random happenstance.
And that would have been stellar.
Would have been stellar. Would have been a great joke. Would have been an awesome pun. But unfortunately, that pun is no good now.
That's
Sorry.
all right. That's okay. That's all right.
Frank, that was a just okay pun, but no, was actually better than just okay. Was Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Frank? Wait, I'll change the way I said that.
Okay.
Was the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Frank, period. Because otherwise it sounds like the title of the show is Falcon and Winter Soldier, Frank.
Right. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Frank the Winter Soldier. Right. Yeah. I thought this show was okay, actually. I thought it was okay.
A difference of opinions.
Yeah,
I love this.
We
never do this, Frank.
That's not true. That is not true at all. We wouldn't have 350 something episodes if we said the same thing every time. No, I liked it. It definitely was slow going to get started for me, and in the end, it came around for me. But it was not my favorite Marvel thing I've ever seen. It wasn't my favorite superhero thing I've ever seen. It was good. I enjoyed it, but
middle of the pack.
Middle of the pack.
Lower? Okay.
Middle to above the fold. Not bottom of the pack.
Yeah. Okay.
We're not talking Thor: The Dark World area. Like way above that. In the top half. But it just was. It was probably more along the lines of like the Marvel Netflix shows for me, where I was just sort of like, okay, this is like in terms of enjoyment, not in terms of quality, not in terms of storytelling, but in terms of how much I enjoyed it. Just sort of like, okay, this is good. I don't enjoy it as much as like the movies, but this was fun.
To paraphrase Austin Powers, it wasn't your bag, baby.
It was not my bag, baby. No.
Interesting.
But you liked it a lot more than I did.
I liked it a lot. I think I liked it more than WandaVision, which is, I think, heresy. I think it's heresy.
I think you're alone in that one.
Heresy, blasphemy. Well, I will explain why, and it's purely subjective. I don't think this is. I think. Well, maybe. All right. So spoilers for both moving forward.
Yes.
Just so we're aware.
Yes, for both the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I loved WandaVision so much. You can go back to listen to episode 300 and blah blah blah.
You
did hear me talk about it.
You did love it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I thought it devolved by the end of the show, which I do believe we talked about, where you have this smart, postmodern, deconstructionist look at television, at Marvel, at Scarlet Witch and Vision, blah, blah, blah. And by the end, it's, hey, everyone, guess what? It's the MCU, so we have to fight. We have to fight somewhere. We can't just have we can't do something so drastically different. We have to adhere back to formula. Throws friend into machine equipment.
Right.
Yeah.
Back to formula.
Yeah.
That took me a second, but I got there.
Yeah. It's because I couldn't think of the guys. I can't think of the guy's name. It's going to come to me later. It's Norman Osborn and his helper scientist friend. Yeah. Norman.
Back to formula.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Back to formula. Oh, yeah, it's a lot. He says that a lot. Like a very brief amount of time in that film in Spider-Man. But anyway, but it does. It goes back to classic Marvel formula, which I like. It's very digestible. It's fun. It's pop entertainment. But I thought that the first many episodes of WandaVision was doing something very not Marvel that way. It was quirky and different, and the commentary was fairly strong and all this stuff. And so, but then it just kind of devolved, where I thought that Falcon and the Winter Soldier started where it ended, so it was just more consistent in what it was delivering. Maybe it might not have been as original to television, but at least like I understood the expectations from the beginning to the end, and it followed through with those, where I thought that WandaVision tapered.
Interesting. I see that, and I understand that. I feel like I'll agree that like WandaVision started in one place and ended in a very different place. It wasn't consistent in the same way. That was one of the things I liked about WandaVision, was that it lulled you into this, like, okay, here's what we're doing. We're doing this deconstruction of pop culture. And it unraveled into this completely different thing that tied itself into the events of the Marvel Universe in a very unique way. What Falcon and Winter Soldier, for me, it felt like a Captain America movie, which is great, which is fantastic, and I would see that movie. But it felt like it was very decompressed over the course of a series. And I felt like it was, and I felt like I was watching a movie in small pieces, and I just wanted to watch the movie. Like I didn't want to see it in pieces. And maybe I would feel differently if I binged the show. I bet I would feel differently if I binged the show. But watching it week to week, and sort of trying to figure out where it was going. Ultimately, I had my suspicions, but trying to just follow this show, and there wasn't enough week to week that sort of kept me like, oh man, I can't wait to see what happens in the next episode. It was sort of like, can we just get there already so I can get to the big, like whatever this big culmination of everything is going to be. It just sort of felt like it was very slow and plodding to get there. And once it got there in the end, I enjoyed what they gave us. I guess I just wish that it was, a 2-hour movie instead of this many episodes of a series.
I absolutely understand that criticism. Especially since WandaVision, I mean, they're very different shows, but WandaVision is, by its nature, because of what it's doing, episodic. It is meant to be digested 1 week at a time because of the way every episode is a new type of television, and blah 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 all the way to the end. Whereas you are telling one narrative in Falcon and Winter Soldier, right? You know, it's one long through line from beginning to end. And that's where the consistency comes in. But you're right, week to week, it almost just brings you back to a non-binging environment that you might not exactly be used to, because like say like Mandalorian, you know, another Disney Plus streamer show, also has its episodic episodes. They don't always connect. But Falcon and Winter Soldier is one long thing. It's like, here's the chapter break, here it is, here it is. And you're right, it does feel like a Captain America movie, and that's what I think its greatest strength was, that it played directly into the story that we were telling a few episodes ago, maybe last episode, ? Out loud, when we talked about film festivals.
Yes. Would you do the Captain America Film Festival? Like, here's like the story through line of Steve Rogers throughout the MCU. Correct.
And with that in mind, that's precisely what this is. It continues that film festival. It has the same tone as Winter Soldier, which is the kind of the core of Steve's, you know, his turning point of his story. And so because you could make an argument that Steve actually doesn't really change much between the end of events of Winter Soldier, basically all the way through the end of Endgame. He's fairly consistent in who he is.
Yeah.
And
you could argue that.
I mean, the nature of Steve Rogers, he is consistent in who he is from beginning to end. Is this a test? You know,
right.
I'm just a guy from Brooklyn. Like, that's just who he is. But the show works with that. It's the Falcon and Winter Soldier is not just the story of Bucky and Sam. It's the legacy of Steve Rogers, but also the legacy of Captain America. It's the legacy of America itself, and it's tied together through Steve Rogers, who is but a memory and ghost. He's on the moon or whatever, which is a comic thing, which I think it's fun that they were joking about that. Because when Steve became old in the comics, like, he was like literally like hanging out like on the moon at like part of the Watchtower thingy on the moon. And so I loved that they played with that, because he could be on the moon. Who knows? But I like this idea that you have Steve, the legacy, and that's how it sets it up. Put the shield in the Smithsonian and blah, 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 all this stuff. And then you get John Walker, new Captain America right away, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, realistic America versus the idealized America through Steve Rogers versus hidden America or forgotten America with Isaiah Thomas?
Sam Wilson?
No, Sam Wilson and Isaiah.
Yes, the older super soldier who.
Yes. Isaiah yes. Yeah, look it up for me.
I'm gonna use my one lookup, because I know Isaiah Thomas is an NBA player, but I also could be.
Yeah. So
Isaiah Bradley.
Bradley, thank you. Yeah, I knew it was a first name as a last name. I couldn't remember. So you're confronting all of this. You're confronting all of this stuff, right? You know, it's like capitalism and, you know, American interests overseas and all this stuff, but they're battling Marxism, right? You know, like, because that's the flag smashers. They are battling no borders, no nations, everyone's equal, all this stuff, and the first world doesn't like that. You know, like give me back my stuff. They're trying to capture that thing, and then but between Isaiah and Sam, and you're asking, what? Like, you're taking my stuff. Like, that's the whole thing with the boat and everything like that, right? And then and you have John Walker, who's just so willing to be a symbol. He doesn't actually understand what being a symbol is and what it represents. The first time you see blood on the shield is with John Walker, right? Because American interests overseas, you know, and John Walker is almost like the equivalent of like I have a black friend, you know, like,
right. Yeah.
In a lot of ways, it's kind of that. And they're doing this whole thing. A friend of mine pointed out to me, even when Sam dons his Captain America outfit, it's very comics accurate, which is very cool. But my friend was like, they cover his face in white. Like, isn't that like, which I think is just because it's comic accurate, but he was reading into it. But like here you are, the symbol of Captain America, and now half your face is white. Like what are you doing there, Sam? And so it's looking. I like that it looks at all of these things, but it pits capitalism versus Marxism as your main players, plus aristocracy with Baron Zemo, right? Because they like throw in the fact in here that Zemo's like, I was a baron until your country destroyed mine. Like, it's a throwaway line, but it's the third part of the economic system that and the political system that everybody's fighting for all over the place. And I just thought that was really interesting because it doesn't actually really say any of that. Like, it's not like Harley turns to the camera and she's like, we, the Marxists, believe, in what Karl Marx says. Like, she doesn't do any of that. It's just there if you want it. And I thought that was really smart. It does devolve a little bit as, in the third act, where it's like it wants to do all these things with, borders and this, and what does it do? Takes one speech from Captain America to break all of that down. And so it's always going to be tied nicely with a bow, but that's what we love about the MCU is that it's a good place to live.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
We want it to be a better place.
I felt like they were trying to maybe do too much and that maybe they could have pared it down a little bit and given it a little bit more focus, because I feel like there were a lot of things, sort of like you're saying, there was a lot of things that were there if you wanted them, but it wasn't the focus of the show. Things like that Baron Zemo through line, those things were there for you if you wanted them. But I felt like the show didn't have a point of view on many of those things. They sort of threw them in there, and if you caught them, you could weave them into your own point of view. But there wasn't a coherent point of view, a consistent point of view for a lot of those through lines. And then coming through to the end, where it's like this is both about the Marxist aspect, but it's also like you can't call them terrorists because they're also refugees. So which is it? It was a little. It lacked focus. It was a little scattered in sort of what the moral of the story was. I mean, I certainly got, we got, Bucky has his ending where he's no longer really the Winter Soldier anymore. Now he's, he's going to be White Wolf or whatever. Maybe let's call him the Winter Soldier, but he's not the old Winter Soldier anymore. Yeah, and Sam is clearly Captain America.
Said, like, officially in the Marvel universe now, he can no longer be called the Winter Soldier. That's the line.
There you go.
Yeah.
So he's moved on. Sam has moved on and has taken on the role of Captain America, which, arguably he deserved a while ago. So it's a lot of it, it comes to an end and they put a nice bow on it, but I don't know that it came together organically. I feel like it came together because it was the last episode and it was time for it all to come together.
Yes, and I think WandaVision did the same thing. I
would agree with you on that. I think
WandaVision did the same thing. Like, it was time.
It was time.
And I think you're right in that it does tread water, or okay, well, we have 6 episodes and they're 50 minutes apiece. So let's stretch some of this stuff out. Like, you can almost see places to cut it in particular moments to get it to about a 2.5 hour movie. But I didn't mind because I thought that the performances from Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie were terrific. Because they're very much supporting players in all of the Marvel films, and so this was a chance for both of them to shine a little bit. How much do you get your character? And I don't think Sam Wilson has had justice done to him since Winter Soldier.
Yeah, I would agree.
This was the thing that I was like, right, this is why I fell in love with Sam in the first place. And I think I thought they really stepped up. They really honed who that character is, what Steve saw in him so explicitly, all the way back to them running around the national mall.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. I do think this is the best we've seen, the best work they've given Anthony Mackie to do since his first appearance.
Yep.
And he was the best part of the whole show for me. His performance, his the way he owns the character. I mean, his interactions with the Isaiah Bradley character were so poignant and so meaningful at this particular juncture in American history.
Mm-hmm.
And he really, really sold it. He really, really sold it. I was very captivated by his performance. And honestly, Sebastian Stan too. I really, really appreciated his performance and his, history with the character at this point. That's been however many years. It's been a good long while that they've both been playing these characters. And it's cool to get to see them have, what's probably not the ending for either one of these characters, but to come to this, this sort of act break in both of their character arcs. So yeah, it was, those things were very well done. I really liked that. I really liked, and I thought actually the way they brought in Julia Louis-Dreyfus, I got the distinct impression, and I have not done any reading on this, so you might know things I don't know.
Okay.
I got the distinct impression that we were supposed to have seen her already, but because things got moved around because of COVID, that didn't happen. I know this show was supposed to be released before WandaVision, and am I wrong that the initial plan was for Black Widow to have been released before this show?
The Black Widow was supposed to release before this show. Black Widow's a prequel, so
right.
I can't speak to if she's in that or not. Like, I don't know. I was not under the impression that this is the first time that we were supposed to see her. Because she felt like a power broker misdirect.
Yeah.
That was my initial reaction. Except the character that she's playing is quite famous. So Valentina Allegra de Fontaine is Nick Fury's main, I don't know, companion, I guess,
sure,
partner in his series from the Steranko days from the 70s. Okay, she eventually becomes Madam Hydra,
right?
And so this is Madam Hydra's back, and Hydra's back in a big way. John Walker thinks that which I'll get to John Walker in a second, but so I don't necessarily think that she was supposed to show up earlier. I think this was she's setting. This is the seed for what comes later, kind of like planting the seed of the 10 rings, maybe, or the Infinity Stones, or something like that. This is all the sprinkled part. But I think that sometimes when you start sprinkling things, you as a comic fan, you don't immediately recognize. You start to feel like a regular audience member, where you're like, I don't quite understand where you're going with this, and I'm going to have to trust you, because like if you watched Avengers in the theater and a big purple guy shows up and smiles, you're like, who the hell that?
Right.
Like,
sure.
why does anything what you just said matter?
Yes.
Like, yeah. So, but that's where I am on that. I do want to say a couple things. One, that Carl Lumbly as Isaiah Bradley,
top notch.
Yeah, he's the best. But the guy that's with him, Eli Bradley, which I guess is his son, his grandson, whatever. He is a Young Avenger in the comics.
Oh, nice! I missed that.
Yeah, so he's a guy named Patriot, and so you have these, like, again, about the legacy of America, but also like the legacy of Captain America-esque heroes. You have Isaiah Bradley from the 50s, you have John Walker, you have Sam Wilson, and you have Eli Bradley. But now that's 3 Young Avengers that Marvel has thrown out there for us. We've got Wanda's kids in WandaVision, and now we've got Eli Bradley. So, like, they're doing something, like they're going in, we have Miss Marvel coming, and, all this stuff is, like, it's all in there.
It's all a brewing.
It's all a brewing. Which I think is good, very good. There's also Joaquín Torres, who is the army guy that is there to help Sam. Yeah. When Sam becomes Captain America in the comics, Joaquín becomes Falcon.
Okay.
And so, or maybe he becomes a different hero name, but either way, like, he takes Sam. He's like, Sam's like, you keep him, you keep these wings. That's because he's going to actually do something with them, So we'll see that guy again too.
Sure.
Okay.
So that tracks.
Yeah. So they're planting some good seeds. I do want to talk about John Walker because we mentioned Valentina. I thought John Walker was one of the was one of the most dynamic characters in the MCU to date.
You love to hate him. You loved to hate him.
Yeah.
And that was, he played that exactly right.
Yep, he did. There was a lot of nuance to Wyatt Russell's performance, because he starts strong. He comes out and he winks at the camera and there's all this stuff. And you're like, I hate you already. Yep. I hate you. But here's a guy that before he even starts is crippled by the pressure of what he's about to do and doesn't understand the performance. In a lot of ways, it mirrors Steve's story in First Avenger, right? You have the guy, he becomes Captain America. What do? Stick him on stage, sell it, sell America. And, and then he goes rogue in a way, much like, not rogue, but you know what I mean? Like he starts to do his thing, much like Steve does, but he doesn't have Steve's heart. And that's the thing that Erskine goes all the way back to with the super soldier serum. It just makes you more of who you are, and that's just not who he is because he's already crippled by self-doubt and fear and all of this stuff. And then you have that track, but then you also have the parallel of Isaiah Bradley doing the exact same thing that Steve Rogers did in the first Avenger and being locked up for 30 years for and experimented on.
Crazy.
It's good. That's that stuff to me makes this show way better.
Yeah. Those were great things. Those were and well done, wonderfully executed, wonderfully written. And I would argue that's something that would be very hard to do as well as they did in a movie. As much as I'm saying I think that this could have been a movie, perhaps. That's one thing that would have been hard because to give the Isaiah Bradley story room to breathe like that and have it have the impact that it had would have been difficult in a 2-hour movie.
Mm-hmm. Do you have that? Is there more to say? You looked at me like you were like, please continue, but also I have more to say, so I wasn't sure how to read that.
I want you to continue. I guess the only other thing I would say is it's really funny how John bears a striking resemblance to Ego, but that's weird.
Well, Ego might have had more than one kid on Earth. Let's just put that out there. I mean, let's not actually. I'm not about
John Walker and Peter Quill are half brothers. You heard it here first.
Let's not do that. Let's not. But anyway, with Valentina, with John Walker, so he destroys himself. He's like the government fully rejects him, blah, blah, blah. And he thinks it takes him back, right? With Valentina, like, I'm back, baby. That's what he says. His best friend died. And he's like, but I'm U.S. agent now.
I'm U.S. agent. I'm good.
I'm good. It's the same but black. And she's like, yeah, don't worry about that. Like that. I like it because if he is America, he's the symbol of America, but he's realistic America in a lot of ways. Hey, look, it's America inserting itself where it doesn't belong, and now it's paying the penalty. Now it's duped. Now it's this. Oh, you thought you got it, but you didn't. And I just think I think that's smart to show, I think it shows we already knew Steve Rogers was the best. Everybody knows that. But, to have that juxtaposition with other people just trying their best. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and not coming close makes a huge difference.
He represents America falling for its own, falling in love with its own reflection. Right. Just totally being like, hey, you can have all these, you can have the costume, and you can be who you want to be. Great, oh my god, this is great, and not realizing all the downsides and the strings that are attached to that.
If I may, if Steve Rogers is the greatest generation, right? That Captain America, selfless, blah, blah, blah. This is what we did in the war, so on and so forth. Then John Walker is in direct parallel to, he's either Reagan U.S. agent, which he kind of was in the comics. That's where he was with birth. But now he's post 9/11 Captain America. This is the Captain America we need now, in this world, and blah, blah, blah. Or in the MCU, he's, post-blip Captain America. What the kind of thing he needs now.
He's the Captain America that saw too many Instagram ads and really thought that if he drank this kind of tea, he would get a flat tummy or something. He saw some just. He's the flat tummy tea Captain America.
So stupid.
He's the back this Kickstarter Captain America.
Oh no!
You know, he falls for it because he falls for the promises, the empty promises that the world offers, and doesn't have like the Greatest Generation Captain America had, doesn't have like sort of the moral backbone to stand up and sort of know right from wrong or know when he's being fooled.
Agreed. Let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk Baron Zemo, who I thought was great in this. I thought that Daniel Bruhl is awesome, but he brings an extra level that you wouldn't that I felt was missing from Civil War, and this is kind of the Zemo that I recognize, and so I enjoyed his performance. I enjoyed his performance a little more. My only real criticism is that they make this big thing about him like reaching for the purple mask and putting it on, and he puts it on, he fights with it, it's amazing, and I was like, maybe this will come back, maybe he'll come back, blah blah blah. No, it was just fan service.
Yeah.
Like there literally was no reason for him. Like if he just like found a purple mask and put it on, like, and he's like, got to protect my identity in this 1 second, that's fine. But like this whole like reach for, what do I do? Do I reach? Like, what is that? What is happening? Like, why was that necessary?
Yeah, I got nothing for you. I got nothing for you on that.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. But I like the rest, and I loved Sebastian Stan. I like that he and Sam were working through their trauma. Again, like this seems to be the thing that they're not letting go of post-blip world, right? And so, but it's to them, it's really about these two guys who were always like, they were like jealous friends. They like, I'm the best friend. No, I'm the best friend.
Yeah.
And now they have to, they have to find Steve within each other. And that I thought worked really well because especially Bucky, who starts out in First Avenger, again, noble purposes, joins the army, does this like, he got his papers, right? So he was called to enlist and all this stuff. And so, but here he is as a guy who's just been screwed by the system over and over again. Cause that's really the main theme of this whole show was screwed by the system, right? The people coming back from the blip are screwed by the system. Black community screwed by the system.
Yes.
John Walker gets screwed by the military. Sharon Carter gets screwed. Like everybody is everybody is hurt and recovering from. Everybody's hurt and recovering from existing systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I, it doesn't necessarily confront all of those things head on, but at least a lot of the characters are coming through it together. A lot of characters are coming through it together, and I liked that.
I think that's my biggest criticism of the show, honestly, is that they don't address a lot of things head on. They sort of touch lots of different, like, ooh, this is interesting, isn't it? Ooh, that's interesting, isn't it? I feel like WandaVision was like a 12-part Maximoff series, like a 12-part maxi series where they're publishing one issue a month, right? Obviously, it wasn't 12 episodes, but just go with me on this.
Sure. No, I just like the 12-part Maximoff series. I thought that was great.
And this was a 6-issue arc that was written for trade.
Sure.
Yeah. And I feel like every episode of WandaVision felt like an event and like somewhat self-contained. Obviously, there were cliffhangers, there were things you wanted to know what's going to happen in the next episode, but it was sort of like, here's what happens in each episode, and that happened less and less as it went on, but generally speaking. Mm-hmm. And this show was more of like, it's one big unit being told in chapters. And I think something that really threw me off from the start was the fact that they didn't give us more. They only gave us one episode at the beginning. They just gave us the first episode, and then it was one episode at a time after that. And I felt like it would have been better served. A little bit
more happens. They're longer than the WandaVision episodes.
They are, but I feel like it would have been better served if I had had 2 or 3 to get into the story and know what I was getting into. Because at the end of episode 1, I didn't really know what the story of the series was, and we hadn't seen the two title characters interact yet.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do think that was a fault of the first episode. I'm with you there, but I think if you're looking at it like from a scheduling point of view, they only had 6 episodes. It has to come out in a particular amount of time to fit the next thing, because this had to be done before Bad Batch.
Yes, but they have control over
Star
that.
Wars.
But they have control over it. Disney has control over that. It's not like it's
of course,
the weather. We can't do anything about it.
That don't matter.
That's what I'm saying. No. They had control over it, and I wish they had exercised that control a little bit more judiciously.
Yeah, but some things, when things are set, when dates are set, and you got to adhere to that sometimes. Especially when your marketing materials say, "Oh, it's coming out on this day. It's coming out on this day. It's coming out on this day." And the episodes are longer. And I think WandaVision, when WandaVision was supposed to come out second, I don't think it was would have been as much of a hard sell because Falcon Winter Soldier. Hey, everyone, it's Marvel. You know what it's like, and you watched it, and it's Marvel. The end. It's not as hard of a sell. WandaVision is a tough sell. Especially when you hear the concept, and nothing happens in the first 2 episodes related to the overall, really related to the overall narrative, and so they have to for a younger audience who doesn't recognize Dick Van Dyke or doesn't recognize Bewitched, they have to let that person get through those things to get to what they expect.
That's right. I'll say this too, with regards to the release order of the 2 series. On paper, having a movie about these 2, characters of Falcon Winter Soldier who are beloved from the movies, and having that be having a show that feels like an extension of the film universe, that on paper that looks like have that show be first, and then do your sort of weirder off the wall show secondly. If you had asked me which configuration would work better, I would have said Falcon and Winter Soldier first, then WandaVision, and if people want to stick around for the weird show, they'll stick around for the weird show. But it turns out that actually having WandaVision come out the gate first, I think was really cool because it showed them doing something daring, something different, breaking their mold a little bit, and that was what it was, and it was great. But maybe the sort of unfortunate downside of that is the momentum from WandaVision. You're like, all right, cool. What new interesting things are they going to do here? And then you get a show that feels like the movies, which is good. Which is the movies are good, so something that feels like the movies should be a good thing. But it's different momentum.
It set a precedent that it wasn't supposed to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
And not one they intended to set either. But
that's correct.
Just a happenstance outcome of the way things turned out.
Yeah, and I think it is a little unfair to compare them because when you go see a Marvel movie, you don't compare Ant-Man 2 to Endgame, where you're like, oh, well, it wasn't as good as Endgame. Or you don't compare Iron Man to Thor 3. They're just completely separate movies with different characters, with different ideas, themes, and we're comparing them because they're television shows.
Yeah.
And that's not fair to the material that we watched. And I think in some ways that even include WandaVision had more episodes, but they were shorter. So we can't say oh, well, it was only 6 episodes. I'm yeah, but they were longer, and it's telling a different story in a different format.
Right.
So
it's a different format. Exactly. That's where I was sort of going with the 2 different kinds of comic books analogy, because it's a different format. I heard someone else say oh, it's sort of I wanted a taco and you gave me a gyro, and it's yeah, it's very good. I like tacos though, so it's good. Why are you complaining about this gyro? It's so good. No, it is. It's just that I like tacos, so it's just different.
No, you're right. You're right.
It's it's not bad. It's just different than what I was
That's
what
right.
I came for.
I wanted macaroni and cheese, and you gave me spaghetti and meatballs.
Yeah, it's okay, yeah, they're similar. They're okay, yeah,
they're both noodles,
right?
Sure,
but very different.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So.
No, I think that's fair. And I know I'm in the minority of liking this more, but also for me, Captain America is my favorite MCU character. And so to see that legacy continue to be honed and spoken of and doing interesting things with it, I just enjoyed that more. I'm not I'm not huge into sitcoms or but I guess that's basically about it because I love Wanda and Vision. So,
right.
But
I get that, and you've this conversation has given me more appreciation for Falcon and Winter Soldier. So there you go.
Yeah, if you say Falcon in a weird way, it sounds like you just said something completely different. Yeah, just FYI, you might want to bleep that out.
This Falcon episode will never.
Yeah, when you go back. Oh goodness gracious. I probably have more things to say, but I think no. Okay, Sharon Carter.
Yes.
What the frig was that?
Did not see that coming.
No, one, didn't see it coming. Didn't like it either.
No,
truthfully.
I didn't either, actually. I agree with you. I was such a fan of hers. I mean, have been the whole time that she's been a character in the MCU, and then loved her this whole show. And the twist at the end kind of broke my heart because I like her so much. I was literally thinking
good.
At that moment, I was like, oh, are they setting up like a Sharon Carter series? Oh my God, what if they did an Agent Carter like reboot with Sharon? Like, what a cool, like, how cool. But wait, what? Mm-hmm. It just very quickly turned.
I just thought that, I mean, people change and everything, and I'll get to that. But, you know, like we meet her in Winter Soldier. She's betrayed by her government because it's Hydra, right? And then she's on the run at the end, by the end of Civil War, and she's on the run for years, and she like turns herself into the power broker because she's been betrayed by her government, right? You know, she joined because of Aunt Peggy. That's what she says in Civil War, right? That was her big thing. Look at the Greatest Generation again. Look how amazing she was. Look at what she did, all of this stuff. And you turn around and stab me in the back. Like, and she's bitter about that. And so she like turns herself into something powerful, which is fine and everything, but it just feels like it just doesn't feel natural for her character, for her reasoning behind everything, what she says she believes in, and like all this stuff. It doesn't feel right. But however, my thought after she's like at the mid credit scene, she's walking out of the all-purpose government building, and she's on the phone and she's like, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, do you want some stuff now? Blah, 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 whatever she says. Now, could go in a couple different directions. She's selling to Hydra and she's connected to Val. She could be, someone told me like maybe she's working for Nick Fury and this is all like a thing that's wrapped up in there. And I said that could be, I mean, Nick Fury, last we saw Nick Fury, he's chilling in space or whatever, right? You know, so that's very possible. Or she's a Skrull.
That was, you know, when she was the way she was walking out of that building, Skrull was the thing that came to my mind, especially the conversation she had on the phone. Yeah, that I thought Skrull. But the Hydra angle is interesting and the Fury angle is very interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like it's either Skrull or Hydra.
Yeah, I'm fine. I mean, they're obviously setting up Secret Invasion. We know it's coming. Olivia Colman has been attached. Emilia Clarke is attached. Like those are gets. That's great for Marvel. And so it's gonna. I mean, when WandaVision ends with Skrull stuff, and so like clearly that's the thing they're building to. That's the next thing that they're building to. So I think that's I think that's just maybe a more opening, because Sharon Carter is also a character that I'd be okay if you're a Skrull. That one doesn't hurt as much. You know, I could like, how far back were you a Skrull? I could think about that for a while. It could be 2 years, it could be post Civil War, could be this, like whatever. That one feels okay to me.
Agreed.
That one's okay. So we'll see. I don't know. Also, know what was cool though? Going to Madripoor. That's a big comics thing, especially for the X-Men. That was cool. Madripoor is a huge comics X-Men thing. So I thought I was excited about that. That was just a little bit closer to the X-Men in the MCU. So yeah. Well, Frank, this was fun.
Overall, yeah, this show had a lot going for it. It was, I think I would have enjoyed it more, honestly, if it had been the first show. But I
think so too. Yeah, I think we all would have enjoyed it more if it was.
That's probably true. That's probably true. Yeah, but hey, you've actually made me reconsider a lot of the things, and given me appreciation for things that I didn't care for initially. So
same here.
Fun
You've
stuff.
lowered my standard, and I've raised yours.
There
we
go. And so we meet in the middle.
Exactly. But tell them where they can meet us on the internet, Frank.
Well, you can meet us at beerwithgeeks.com or thoughtbubbleaudio.com if you want to check out our other shows. We're on every podcast app, full stop. Every podcast app, you can search for Beer with Geeks and find us there. Follow us for every episode so you never miss one. You can support us by subscribing at patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio. You know, we do these shows. We love doing them. They do cost a little bit of money to produce, and your support of as little as $1 a month makes it possible for us to keep on keeping on. So thank you to everyone who supports us there. Meanwhile, you can rate and review us in Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Stitcher and everywhere else. That helps us tremendously as well. And you can contact us at Beer with Geeks on Twitter or beerwithgeeks@gmail.com if that's your preference. And I think those are all the places. Those are all the things. So unless one of us was a Skrull, I think this episode actually went pretty well.
I do believe so. Nicely done, Frank. So until next time, cheers.